everybody. We are back. I'm Christopher Green. You're watching AMTV, Alternative Media Television. Thank you so much for your support. Price of a cup of coffee, $4.95 a month, $49.95 a year. You support the truth. Alternatively, our alternative platform as we go to war with the mainstream media. Thank you so much. The Syria ceasefire is total bullshit. You're probably seeing this in the mainstream media right now. They're like, oh, there's a ceasefire struck by John Kerry in Syria, and the deaths have stopped, even though an estimated some 500,000 plus people have been slaughtered. Civilians, murdered, maimed, killed, dismembered, men, women, and children. But now, according to the U.S. government, there's a ceasefire. Isn't that convenient? And CNN did a piece where they show children now playing, laughing in a little playground schoolyard, because isn't America great? Right? We're so great here, aren't we? America, funding the wars in the Middle East, the perpetual, endless, infinite wars in places like Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria, creating ISIS, which didn't even exist until the U.S. began funding the moderate terrorists on the ground, the death toll, which didn't even exist in Syria before the U.S. got involved. Again, arming the moderate terrorists on the ground, which now have become and are known as ISIS today. But isn't it such a success? There's a ceasefire now after 500,000 plus people dead. Total, utter bullshit. Total, utter propaganda. This report from CNN by Ray Sanchez says the celebration of the Islamic holiday, which began on Monday, has provided a long overdue, it coincides with that, long overdue relief for the littlest victims of Syria's devastating war. And then it just shows the children laughing and everything's great because America's so great. And they just managed to, have a ceasefire, even though, according to independent news wires, the U.S. is already violating that ceasefire. And there is no ceasefire, and people are continuing to die. Again, I talked about last week, and we have for months, going on years now, that this is the time that Vladimir Putin strikes, when America is at its weakest, when Hillary Clinton is buckling, literally, and being wheelbarrowed and thrown into a van, to speed away to Chelsea's apartment, which is probably a retrofitted, outfitted hospital. This is when Vladimir Putin acts. And he's been using places, as has the United States, as training ground and a training ground for world conflict. All these new technologies that they're playing, weaponry, all these elite systems. Syria is a training ground. In fact, we just posted another video today, banned on YouTube. And again, I wasn't public about this about a year or two ago. It's been going on that long, several years. Our content censored, blocked, banned, but you don't really want to bite the hand that feeds you, right? But now that it's so mainstream and so public, everybody's understanding that if you say something outside of the box that might be considered real truth or real opinion, or maybe it's dissent of the U.S. government, it was first being quietly shut down. Now it's major news. Everybody knows it. Total censorship, a total police state, a total George Orwell type environment. That's why we need you guys to support us alternatively and support our platform, not the platform of these too big to fail tech giants, so we can continue to get out the truth to the viewing public. These are very, very serious issues. So we put out this video, How Syria Leads to War with Iran. I put out last year. I think it's probably one of my best pieces, actually. We just re-aired it again today. You can see the clip on YouTube. Please subscribe. We've got hundreds of videos and dozens that you've never seen before. All ad-free, all uncut, all uncensored. The big stories, the biggest stories are the ones that they block, ban, and censor. On the wars, the death counts in this part of the world, Syria, many of my Ukraine videos, many of my prediction videos on the war in the Middle East. videos that I like to remind everybody, including myself, on a regular basis, where General Wesley Clark, a 4-star general, and this was on Democracy Now! Years ago, was pretty much just flabbergasted that we were invading different and various parts of the Middle East post-September 11th, 2001, what many believe to be an inside job and a conspiracy, because again, Building 7 just doesn't collapse on its own without a controlled demolition. Where he's flabbergasted. He's like, what? Why are we invading Iraq? Why are we going into Afghanistan, 2 countries? Why are we even doing this? Again, remind yourself with these clips because they're healthy reminders from generals. Take a look.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me, and one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
So again, folks, I think it's important to remind ourselves, again, General Wesley Clark, how many countries did he say? This wasn't too long ago, post-September 11th, 2001, 7 countries in 5 years. And basically, everything he was talking about then has been unfolding. With, in my opinion, my humble opinion, the final target being Iran. So watch the video, subscribe right now. It's exclusively on demand because it's been banned on YouTube. This was going on several years ago. Thank you for your tremendous support. I did have a report here that I did want to mention. This is from Reuters because, again, this Syria ceasefire is total bullshit. The U.S., according to Reuters, just more compounding evidence, you've got to show people the evidence, is not implementing its part of Syria's ceasefire plan. Russia's defense ministry said on Thursday the United States was using a verbal smokescreen, like what we're seeing with these farces that make up the Clinton News Network reports that all the kids are laughing and having a good time on the playground in Syria. They're using a verbal smokescreen to manufacture consent to hide its reluctance to fulfill its part of a ceasefire agreement on Syria, including separation of moderate opposition units from terrorist groups. After the 3rd day of the alleged ceasefire, which came into force on Monday evening, only Syria's government forces are observing the truce, the ministry said in a statement. It said that units of the opposition controlled by the U.S. have intensified, not ceased, this is a quote, intensified their shelling of civilian residential areas. Remember when we did a report on Ghouta, the alleged chemical attack, how that was actually staged by the U.S. federal government? They wanted to create that uproar to promote public support, manufacture that consent of the war that they want to fight. Just like they went out after Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi and axed him and got rid of him, killed him through NATO. They were trying to, at that time, it actually backfired because the truth got out. Because alternative media, in a lot of ways, I think is winning. We continue to win. We can continue to shed light in the truth to the viewing public. But this is what we're dealing with. So when I read reports say there's a ceasefire, but I know in the back of my head, through hardcore evidence, that people are still dying, it really upsets me. 500,000 people dead, if not more, in Syria as a result of the U.S.-led, her and her allies' intervention in this part of the world and their intent to take out Bashar al-Assad. I've got to go to a quick break. Thank you for your support. Watch our on-demand video that's been banned, How Syria Leads to War with Iran. Get it out everywhere. Make it viral. We'll be right back after these messages.